going to prison saved my life. Like every single person leading up from when I was 18. So when I was 18 and turned 18 in juvie, my life went on a fucking sprint for 3 years of I wanted every fucking day to be like a rap video. And it was what we were doing.
All right, welcome back to Dope Conversations with Dave Carroll and Friends. And look, if you haven't listened to the first couple episodes, number one, in the first episode, we're talking a little bit about what dope marketing is, and we're going to get into that. So just hold your horses on that. Second episode, we got into interesting childhood, a lot of discovery as an adult, a lot of tying that back into how your decisions are made now by reflecting on your childhood. But now we're going to get into some of the ugly shit. If this is your first time meeting Dave, like you're going to see he's real, he's authentic. My name's Rich Cardona, but Dave, you had a lot of brothers and sisters. Yep. You had a pretty interesting, volatile, for lack of a better term, as you said, upbringing, a lot of confusion, a lot of not knowing what you were doing, and you gravitated towards trouble at that age. And I was the same way. And then I was like, I got to join the Marine Corps. I actually got arrested, and then they're like, you're going to the Marine Corps? I was like, all right. So they kind of let me off. That's a totally different story. But it always leads to probably, if you're unlucky in a way, or lucky, a culmination, something, an event that just changes everything. So let's talk about who you were running around with, what you got involved with, and then maybe like a culminating event.
So what happened for me is my parents put me in this like private Catholic military all boys school. Let's just say I'm like the opposite of a lot of that. Don't get me wrong. Faith-based. I like discipline stuff. You know, I've grown a lot since I was 14 or some shit when they put me in that school. But I remember just like getting put in that school and I'm like, how the fuck do I get out of here? And it took me 3 years, but I finally got kicked out of that school when I was in my freshman year. Dang. And what happened was I went to another school in the city, and it was like I just saw very quickly like they didn't really care if you went to school. There were dudes that I kind of like grew up with that went to this school and that were like, you know, just starting in that like freshman year trouble shit, smoking weed, fucking around, skipping class, whatever. And like, if I just get into something, I try to kind of be good at it. And so what happened was, fast forward, in high school, I went to 9 different high schools. Getting kicked out, fighting, getting caught with drugs at school, just getting suspended the maximum amount of times, like just fucking attention-seeking behavior.
What was your goal? And not like you knew.
When I look back, just doing whatever the fuck I wanted to. At any time, just no one could tell me shit. I always go back to like, for any of you that have like watched The Wire on HBO, remember in season 4 where they that guy gets the grant and they're like looking, they put him and the guy that gets the grant, Bunny, and the kid in the room, and the kid's 18 and he like tries to stab him and they're like, oh, we got to back down, maybe a little bit younger kids. Well, what happens is like they get down to where I think it's like 5th graders are where they're like, you can have influence on a child, and they're in Baltimore, like one of the worst areas, neighborhoods, violence, all that stuff. You got to get to a kid at a certain point. And like reflecting on it, I'll tie this story together as we wrap this episode, but I had a conversation with my father when I went to prison about this. And it was like, I was looking at just like, I just want to do whatever the fuck I wanted to all the time, but you couldn't tell me shit. So like it progressed very quickly to where it was like, first I was, you know, getting kicked out of schools, and there was like some fighting, violent stuff happening. And then I got caught with like nothing serious drug-wise, but just like getting in a bunch of trouble with that shit. We ended up stealing a car before my 18th birthday, crashed the car into a light post, going like 90 miles an hour. Me and my buddy Kyle ran off, like not a scratch on us. And I remember I got arrested in school 2 days later. They came into Highland Park High School for that. Me and Kyle both got arrested. And I remember the police officer was putting me in the squad car, big production, came and got me in class, the whole shit. And the police officer put me in the squad car. And he was just like, David, I don't know who you pray or say thank you to or whatever. I see you got a little cross. I got this tattoo when I was 16, like a cross on my arm. He's like, I see you got a cross on your arm, so I just have to say this to you. If no one said anything to you yet, David, about any of this, I see accidents every day. You should be fucking dead. Damn. And you walked away from that thing without a scratch. So I don't know who you say thank you to. You hear me say a lot of my word, the God, Buddha, the great pumpkin, a fucking popsicle stick, whatever. He's like, say thank you. And so it became very important to me in life through any of the trouble, drunk, high, crazy, whatever. Just like my relationship with God. And like that day, I can point it back to. And so what happened was, got in trouble. I ended up going to juvie. I turned 18 in juvie. Damn. And that was my first, I remember in the state of Minnesota, you do like in juvenile, you You do like a 7 to 14, and that means like you're in juvie for 7 to 14 days, and you get like good days and bad days and get out early. So I did 2 7 to 14s leading up to that, and then I had to do
before the
that.
car?
Yeah, like I was in like some little trouble and shit, but it was like a joke. And then I got a 30-day sentence in juvie, and I was like, I don't know if I can do it. Like, I don't know if I can. And it was like this eye-opening experience. But reflecting on it, it didn't teach me shit, because what happened was after I got out of juvie, I'll tell a story around like I got pretty heavy into selling drugs. I was 18 years old in a hotel room counting $1 million cash.
Real quick, hold on. Let's rewind a second.
Yeah.
So you did juvie. You stole a car. You destroyed a car. You got arrested at school.
Yep.
Big publicity. You didn't think you could do 30 days in juvie. You turned 18 in juvie.
Yep.
And you get into drugs, which
it was just a catalyst. It had already like been there. I was already like fucking around. Like I had family out in California. In this time, we were like, I was a part of. It wasn't me like the kingpin or anything, but I was part of like a group of guys bringing like hundreds of pounds back from Cali, hundreds of thousands, $1 million. Like seeing that at a very, very, very young age. Mm-hmm. And right when the stuff happened, when I got in trouble with stealing the car, like I was around that stuff, but not really like a part of it, like exposed to it. And then after I turned 18, it was like, it wasn't like this mental decision where it's like, all right, I'm going all in on this. But like, dude, it's that street cred, like that type of shit where it was just like, I started leveling up in the amount of, you know, credit I had. And I was dealing with like, within a year of getting out of juvie, I was dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars. I remember being in a hotel room counting $1 million.
The question I think I wanted to ask was, if you didn't think you could do 30 in juvie, and then all of a sudden you're scaling this business, this drug business, or at least your own pockets, and you turned 18, why do you think you didn't think about, well, now if something happens, it's going to be the real deal, I'm going to be in real jail?
Yeah, I just like didn't really care. You go in thinking about like the repercussions of your actions, and again, I'm not going to like blame.
Did you?
Fuck no. It was like I had gotten in so much like little trouble and shit that your skin gets thicker. It's like taking licks in business. It's like taking licks as an athlete. It's like anything else. You grow to this stuff. And so like for me, dude, like I had alluded to in a previous episode, like I've never really had a job. I've had 2 like kind of jobs for a couple weeks, but like this was my fucking resume. And I didn't know that that's what I was building up the whole time, or that what led to me doing 4.5 years in prison. I reflect back to what I was thinking at that time, transitioning to when I actually got in like big trouble. It just wasn't phasing me. Like it was just like kind of rolling off my back. So what happened, like let's kind of pack this together, because I know I'm getting a little all over the place. So good. I turned 18 in juvie, and I kind of like, I know I'm not going to college. I know I'm not like people are going into those phases, finishing school. I had like just like, there was this decision where I was going to get my GED, or I was going to go to one of these ALCs to actually get my diploma. So like that somehow became important to me. So I ended up getting my diploma a little bit late, but I started getting into drugs. Like I'm doing fucking Oxycontin was big back then. This was like before the opioid phase really kicked off. But like me and all my buddies, we had started like sniffing oxys. We're getting into like drinking.
Oh, you're talking about consumption.
Oh, not just selling it. We're doing drugs.
Yeah.
With all of this. Because I reflect on that and like the pain through all this shit. I am so thankful. And going to prison saved my life. Like every single person leading up from when I was 18. So when I was 18 and turned 18 in juvie, my life went on a fucking sprint for 3 years of I wanted every fucking day to be like a rap video. And it was. Like what we were doing, the shit we were exposed to, what we were around, like all of it, the shit you hear about in the songs or see in the movies, like that was my life. Yeah. Legitimate transporting operation, the money, the stuff, the losses, the girls, the drugs, the all of it. Like that was my life, and I love that shit. Every fucking minute of it. Like I loved it. When you're in that phase and just like numbing yourself, I look at my core group, and again, like walking cliche here. My group of dudes that I was around, there was 7 of us. 4 of them are dead. 2 of them are in prison for their whole fucking life right now. And 1 of them is like on the streets, like basically like a homeless person. And then me.
Why are you not any of those?
Because I went to prison. So when I turned 21, what had happened, it was 3 weeks before my 21st birthday. I had a house I was managing. Someone kicked the door in, got us for like $130,000 in cash.
Robbed.
robbed. But like no one was in there. They just broke in. I figured out who it was. 2 days later, went and kicked their door in, hit one of the dudes with a pistol, got stabbed 4 times in the house, got left there by the dudes that I'm talking, a couple of those 7 dudes, got left there in that house to die, backed those dudes out of the house, ended up leaving, passing out in a fucking snowbank, waking up handcuffed in the hospital with a collapsed lung, cracked fucking skull. Like, it was when I lead up to that night, and I lead up to like what got me there. And I go back to that story that I was telling about with The Wire, where my father came and saw me in prison. So I ended up getting sentenced to 48 months. I did 38 months, got out of the halfway house, was paying the chick to leave, got caught, had to go back and finish up my sentence. Got out right before I was 25. So from 21 to 25, I was in prison. And I'm not talking about some fucking boot camp, got a couple DWIs, like that type of shit. I'm talking about maximum security prison, fucking Shawshank, 100-year-old prison, 5 tiers, the whole shit. And around the worst of the fucking worst, the murderers, the rapists, the fucking famous, like all of that shit. And I remember sitting down with my father. He came and saw me when I was in prison. He said, David, what did I do as your dad to make you think like it was an okay or a right decision, or that it would even cross your fucking mind to go pick up a gun and hurt someone? I was like, Dad, you didn't teach me that. I learned that from the lifestyle I was living, that like, you're just not gonna take my shit. And so like, I've reflected on that conversation and thinking about as a parent, like what would I be talking to my sons about in that spot, or the decisions that I make, or all of it. And it's just like, I can't even fathom like my sons being in that spot, leading to their decision making to be where I was at. But it was like, we've all made decisions in our life. And a lot of people, when I tell my story, it's like, what did you do and not get caught for? What did you know? Like, everyone's got their thing. For me, what truly saved my life, like I would be a fucking heroin addict right now on the streets, or have already been dead or done something to get me back in prison for a longer amount of time, not sitting here today sharing with you guys if I hadn't gotten in trouble.
It's interesting to do this, but you're an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur. When you were succeeding in the drug game, when you started your previous company and Dope, were you like, I already got the chops for this?
I try to not let my ego answer that question, because when you hear a lot of people talk about like, oh, felons, drug dealers, those type of people, my defenses go up, because a lot of the people I hear talking about like, oh, I went to prison, oh, I did this, were like in prison for like 6 months, or they went for a DWI. And then nothing against any, like, everyone's got their journey, everyone's got their story. That's super important. I've never looked at, I was a good drug dealer, so I'd be good at business. It was vice versa. You watch these things on like A&E, the BET documentaries about like Nicky Barnes and George Lucas, like these people that like did the big drug shit. And you always hear the FBI agents talking about like, they could have ran a Fortune 500 company. I don't think it doesn't lead with, I learned anything from drugs. God gave me some skills of just some things that I'm naturally good at. I chose a path that I would have been, you know, people say like you would have been successful at anything. That's not necessarily true, because you had to make decisions to put yourself in a position to be whatever your definition of success is. For me, I think it was like I was able to identify my tenacity, my go-getter attitude, my networking skills, my ability to just like work hard. Everything's hard work. There's a bunch of shitty drug dealers or shitty thieves or shitty whatever that would not be good running a business. It's the people that I think a lot of times you see that had some like adverse background and that figure their shit out to whatever point. And now they're like, do you think you learned that from, no man, I just fucking banged my head on the wall like everyone. I just was in a different race.
I'm glad you were transparent about that, because some people would lead you to believe that you're uniquely qualified because of that, but all you actually realized was some of your kind of internal, maybe not core values per se, but just like some of the DNA that's inside of you, which is like, I will figure it out, or I will not stop until it scales, or there's nothing that could stop me.
It's that figuring it out, go-getter mentality. Like, again, I'll take it back to like shitty drug dealers. There are dudes that'll like work on the corner all their life, not making much money. And then there are people that are just like excel. And I think a lot of that acceleration goes to like networking abilities, marketing abilities. Like, dude, I used to go to the fucking strip club we used to go out of town just to go to the strip club to bump clients so you could show me where your mom lived and I'll front you $30,000 of drugs. I've never fucking met you. I promise what'll happen if you don't pay. We all know that. But like, let's go into business. It's just a different conversation. I don't think the skills that you acquire understanding that, but the ability to see like, I'm starting in something, but there's someone that's more successful than me right now doing it away. I'm going to steal like an artist. I'm going to go borrow from my mentors, my coaches. It's the same fucking thing in business. My mentors and coaches were just like the Asian fucking bloods that I could go get $100,000 from. It was just a different path, a different industry, a different thing. But I don't think that for me, any of my exposure to drug dealing, an adverse lifestyle, like any of that put me where I'm at today or got me better at it. My stepmom, my dad's third wife, who has become, me and Diana are so close. Diana's like, we've had conversations where I'm like, David, what if you just went to fucking law school? And what if you went to like did some shit like that? And it was just like, I think about it. I'm not a big guy on regrets. I don't look back on the what ifs of life. I think the chances we took, the decisions we made to get us here are like who make us what we are. But it's like, I look at my children and I think about like the path for them. How can I identify the decisions that I was making at an age that my kids are going to be coming up to and try to get them in a different direction to not have to need the things that I needed to make the decisions that I made.
I think about that all the time, but even if you do the best job in the world, it doesn't mean they're going to do what
they're still who they are. Yeah.
It's
and I'm playing a numbers game. The odds are kind of against me. Like one of them's got to be, you know what I mean? But it's like, as parents, we can lay the foundation of like giving our kids the opportunity. How do you communicate with people? How do you handle relationships? How do you have self-confidence? How do you, it's one thing for me to be proud of you as your dad. How are you proud of yourself? Like, what are those type of my man Chase gave me that gem. I got to shout out my man Chase. It's like the decisions we make growing up. Some kids grow up in a very adverse lifestyle and make the decision like, I'm going to get straight A's. I'm going to be the first kid in my family to go to college, to do something like that. I admire that more than some fucking drug dealer that got their life together.
True.
But adversity comes in many shapes, forms, stories, and paths. I think that's one of the big things that I want our listeners to get from any of these conversations is just like, you have your story. And that matters. And just because like I hear people say like, man, I haven't been through what you've been through. I don't have the grit or I don't have the thing. It's like, but you have things that you've been through that you can still get this same like this background, this story.
Like,
this.
Do you really want to compare each other's garbage?
Comparison is the only true thief of joy.
Yes. So look, we're going to get into actual prison next episode. And then after that, we'll get into the release, so to speak, and what happened. But your life was saved. But like, if there's any major takeaway for the listeners here, it's like, if you didn't know that we're sitting here in Minneapolis at Dope Marketing and Dave had scaled businesses, you would think like story's over. Like you wouldn't be interested at all. You would just be like, sucks for that guy. What a piece of shit. But in reality, like, this is exactly what people need to hear, and we're going to get into kind of the worst of the worst next episode. Anything you want to leave listeners with at the end of this one?
I don't think so. There's some fun stuff coming. We got some good stories.
Let's do this.
Yeah.